by getting it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a contentious issue, isn't it?
Yeah, and a lot of people aren't really sure. There's a lot of information flying around. So Tony Livesey has been into the heart of the Balcombe camp to see if the anti-fracking arguments stack up.
It's a story that wouldn't seem out of place in a sci-fi movie. A sleepy British village suddenly awoken by an earthquake. Strange fires flare on the horizon that can be seen from space. Science fiction or science fact? The people living here in Balcombe in West Sussex believe it might happen. Some local residents are worried that a mining company called Quadrilla is going to use hydraulic fracturing or fracking to extract oil from deep below the village. I've come here today as an impartial observer to give the protesters an opportunity to question Joseph Dutton from University of Leicester, who's been researching the industry of fracking for many years. Well, here we are at the Balcombe protest site. Essentially, we've got the world's narrowest campsite. People are pitching their tents on a very narrow grass verge, getting their sleep where they can. About 800 protesters have set up camp here, and we're joined by fashion icon Vivienne Westwood.
I'm here because I'm anti-fracking. That's the first reason I'm here.
Fracking is the fracturing of shale rock with liquid in order to release gas or oil. Often water is used, mixed with sand and a number of chemicals. The water is injected into the shale at high pressure via a borehole.
I'm trying to follow this, and I don't know about it.
I'm just wondering if a lot of people looking at this are taking anecdotal evidence for scientific evidence.
There is no scientific evidence. They're going ahead without scientific evidence, except for, you might call it anecdotal. Yes, fire when you light the tap water. You know, this is anecdotal, it's actually evidence.
What Vivienne is referring to is this internet documentary called Gaslands, which claimed to highlight major problems with fracking in the US.
The one, as you mentioned, in Gaslands with the guy lighting the tap, independent tests were done on that water, and the gas within it was biogenic methane from coal sitting underneath the town. Nothing to do with fracking and shale.
Quadrilla say they haven't started fracking in Balcombe, and yet people are claiming that tremors are being felt.
The guy just up the road here who actually, his house was shaking and it did affect his house.
Fracking can cause seismic tremors. In 2011, Blackpool was hit by a minor earthquake during fracking.
The earthquakes in Blackpool were caused by the fracking. The Quadrilla have admitted the independent tests by universities, and the government has said that fracking did lead to these seismic events. And we're talking about a seismic event of 1.5 happening at a depth of 3,000 feet. That's not going to destroy any buildings.
There's no regulation whatsoever for onshore gas flaring.
It would be regulated. You have to apply for a licence from DEC and the Environment Agency to do it. This is monitored independently by the government, and it's a very short period of time. The flaring or venting is only during the exploration stage.
This is a really extreme method of getting oil and gas out of the ground. And it's brute force you're using with shale gas.
Well,
Joseph, is this any more dangerous than conventional mining, coal mining, for example?
Coal mining has more seismic events. It leads to more releases of radioactive material from the ground, and leaves the largest damage to the surface of the earth.
This lady said there is scientific evidence that water tables have been breached. Now, from everything I read, it says there's a possibility they could be breached. Are you saying, though, they have been breached?
There are studies in certain parts of the United States that indicate, with the evidence base, that there have been breaches.
Right, so that's a legitimate...
This is an unregulatable industry. You cannot regulate it safely.
As we attempt to separate fact from fiction, things get a little heated. I was asking for what evidence the lady has.
I'm asking you, what is your training and expertise in this area?
My training and expertise is to be on television and ask questions.
Do you have any training and expertise in this area? Okay.
What's yours?
You're just using right-wing fascist talking points with gas and oil in this.
No, I'm asking that lady a question. Well, yes, it all got a bit heated.
Yeah, getting very... I mean, it's understandable for the people in the local area. I mean, there is a lot of information flying around there.
Passions were running high.
Yeah.
Well, yes, but what's the latest then with those protesters we saw?
Well, there have been developments today all across the country, really. The Green MP, Caroline Lucas, has grabbed the headlines today because she's been arrested at Balcombe. She was in part of a protest to block the road. She was arrested along with her son and a few other people as well. There was a protest at Quadrilla's HQ in Lichfield. 20 people were involved in a blockade there, and 6 people glued themselves to the railings at the PR company representing Quadrilla in London as well today. So very hectic.
We heard in the film there about the USA that they're obviously doing fracking. So what's the situation worldwide, like with China, France, Germany?
Yeah, well, I'll give you a few examples. France banned fracking in 2011. The president there, Francois Hollande, said it will not happen on his watch. Germany are resistant to it. The brewing industry is a really forceful power there. They're saying they're worried it'll pollute the water and therefore pollute their beer. Right. The main players are China, America and Canada. Now, America and Canada, because of the amount of fracking they've done, believe they've got gas security for the next 100 years. That's why some governments are very interested in this. China have done nothing yet, but if they do, if they exploit the fields they have, they will dwarf what America and Canada can have put together. They're exploring at the moment in 26 different areas.
I mean, that's the thing, is the gas has got to come from somewhere, because we're still relying on it.
We're going to end up importing it from America. If and when fracking takes place in this country, it won't be in time. We'll be importing fracked gas from America very shortly.
So what's the potential then here in the UK? You know, where will they do it? And, you know, what's the incentives to the areas that are affected by the fracking?
Well, when you hear these figures, you'll then understand why a lot of people support fracking. The British Geographical Survey said in the north of England alone, there are 1,300 trillion cubic feet of shale gas. That's just in the north of England. And a tenth of that would give gas security in the UK for the next 51 years. It's quite phenomenal, really. That's just 1/10. So there are 300 permits, Kent, West Sussex and Lancashire, a lot of it underway. If you have it on your land, you are compensated to a certain extent, but you can negotiate with the companies as well, and it can be a nice little earner. And for communities like Balcombe, the government are trying to appease them by, they've got a community fund now, community benefit. They'll get £100,000 for the community and 1% of the production revenue, so it can be a nice little earner for the community.
Okay, well, Tony, thanks ever so much. It'll be interesting to see what happens when that company goes back to carry on their exploratory work. But there we are.
Another demonstration was going on yesterday.